data model coming out of the EHR. And then we link all the patients together by their common IDs, be it their patient ID and their encounter ID if they have one. Then we de-identify it so that that is usable in our query tools and in our Honest Broker tool. The identified data remains behind the firewall and requires an IRB protocol to extract it, as you can see in the top level. So the green level at the bottom is the de-identified workflow. Everyone has access to this data without limit once you have access to the tool set. So here's our workflow. Basically, step one is typically the query tools. You come to us with an idea, and this is all self-service. We train you on how to use the tool set, and you can use fully de-identified data to look for patients who meet your project definition, or you can iterate on your definition. So if you have a definition in mind and you try it and you don't get many patients, maybe it just needs a little bit of tweaking, and we help you learn how to iterate with the query tool, pull data that's de-identified to validate your cohort, and then maybe you iterate a few times. So because the data in step one is fully de-identified, you can iterate as many times as you need. Of course, nobody wants to iterate forever. We will help you when we provide training. We will help you move toward the most efficient way to build your cohort and then move forward as quickly as possible. This is meant to be an efficiency tool set to keep you moving and not burden you and slow down the process by any stretch. But the query tools are very powerful. I2B2 and Trinetics both use grouper functions that allow you to build logic statements that define a cohort. So maybe they need demographic A and demographic B, and they also have to have diagnosis 1, 2, or 3 and procedure X. So we'll work with you to make sure that you're using the logic piece of the tool correctly to define the appropriate cohort. There are more advanced features like temporal features that criteria A has to occur before criteria B, that kind of thing. And we teach you how to use those tools. Honest Broker. So typically it's step 2, but teams can walk in with a list of patients. For example, I'm working with a team who has a list of patients from the trauma registry. So if you have a list of Freighter medical record numbers from another system, you can enter those into Honest Broker. You could get de-identified data out to do a big retrospective. You can also get identified data out for those patients to build a prospective registry. So expand the registry, for example. That's just one use case. But using identified data from Honest Broker does require an approved IRB protocol, and we have a close relationship with the IRB. The tool set interacts with the IRB electronically via email. It's a very slick, fast, efficient workflow. Once a request is submitted, the turnaround is very, very good. We find that most extracts are, unless you put it in at 3 o'clock on a Friday, you will get data within 24 hours if you're approved. And if you're not approved, they'll tell you why. And my team will help you, can help you review your protocols to make sure that you're linked to our bank and you have language in a protocol that allows you to use the Honest Broker tool. So that's something that we are here to help with. I see a couple more questions in chat. Dr. Kamaraju, is this I2B2 link available on InfoScope? That's a good question. We're actually working to make our front door available in more places. So that's something we're working with the Office of Research on, and you should see some communications coming out in the very near future because we are partnering with Freighter's analytics team, their enterprise analytics team. So if you typically in the past would go and get data from their MyDA tool, now you're going to come through our front door. And if we can't get you the data you need through self-service, we will facilitate opening a MyDA ticket. And I've talk about that a little bit lower in the slides. But the short answer is yes, we are going to try to make a link available on InfoScope and other places so that you have access to our landing page, so you can apply when you're ready. You can learn about what our toolset has. And so we have a data dictionary that's available on our front page, basically at our front door, so that you can get an idea of what data we offer, not only from the domain level, the table level, but it's a very long document. It includes every single data element that's included on every table. And so it will help you learn what kind of data you can get for yourself through our self-service tool set. Of course, with a little training. We're happy to train everyone up to make sure that they're using the tool set appropriately. A very important concept to understand is the granularity of each table. So a table like demographics is not very granular. It's one row per patient, and every patient has a list. It has a bunch of columns with data for their current demographics. It's a very easy table. Other tables like medications, labs, encounters, demographics, when you identify a patient in your cohort and or a list of patients in a cohort, and you bring that list over to Honest Broker and you say, okay, now I want data for those patients from Honest Broker, you will define a time period in Honest Broker that says this is how much data, this is the date span for the data you're going to get on every table, except demographics, because it's not a date constrained table. Let me go to the next slide. So something like diagnosis, you're going to get multiple rows for each patient for that date range that you set in Honest Broker. I call Honest Broker the be careful what you wish for tool. So if you've got 4,000 patients in your cohort and you want to get 20 years worth of data, we'll send up warning flags to say these tables are going to be very, very large because you're getting all the data for 20 years for every single patient. That's fine if you're working with a biostatistician or you know how to use a tool like R or Stata or SAS, because those tools can ingest large sets of data and then allow you to query across the tables using the linking variables like patient num and encounter num. So it's a cautionary tale to say, yes, you can get a lot of data, but then you have to know what to do with it. The good news is through the CTSI, you have access to the BIRD, the Biostatistics and Epidemiology and Research Design Group. And we also have spun up a new data science group with Dr. Ernest Amanqua, who is very happy to meet with teams and help them scope their projects and develop good research questions. So we have new things coming through the CTSI for folks that are just starting to do research and could use a little jump start from some experts. How are we doing on questions in the chat before I move on? Okay, looks like we're good. Excellent. All right, so if you have magical data skills, or you have access to someone who knows how to program, we have a Jupyter Hub environment that is, we call it doubly encrypted. It's just encrypted in a different way from Honest Broker so that the data sets cannot be linked together. Jupyter Hub is actually accessed directly to all the Honest Broker tables. So instead of coming to a query tool, you can go directly to the Jupyter Hub and build cohort queries and then build analytic data sets directly in this environment, looking across all the tables. You have everything at your fingertips, and some teams are really excited about this. We have a good partnership with some data scientists over at UWM. They've been using this. We have folks at MCW who've used Jupyter Hub to build encrypted data sets that they can use over with at MSOE in their ROSI big data environment and do machine learning. So this Jupyter Hub has opened up a whole new use case for our user community. The caveat is that you need to know how to write code in SQL, Python, R, But the Jupyter Notebook environment is very usable. I think we've had people connect with SAS to the tables. But that's something we can talk about. If anyone has interest in learning how to use this, getting access to it, feel free to reach out to me directly. You will get contact information at the end of the slide deck. And then, of course, we will share the slides with you. I want to make sure I'm answering the chats. Dr. Michaels put in an important note through the division. You can also work with a statistician if you think your data will be too large. Yep, Excel, be careful of Excel because it only accommodates like 1,048,000 rows, something like that. So some of our tables get very, very large and it's difficult to open those. I wouldn't open them in Excel. Dr. Horowitz, you also have some really good comments here. Also, data management and biostatistical resources available through the Cancer Center. Yes, absolutely. The GEO team has magical skills, and we are partnering with the Cancer Center right now very heavily to bring more data out into the open and facilitate deeper research. Some of you may or may not be aware of Trinetics. So Trinetics is our other query tool that we offer through the self-service tool set. Trinetics not only houses our de-identified Freighter and children's data, we have also linked to some of their other research networks. So there is a literal research network which has 80 some participating healthcare organizations. There's a US collaborative. There is a linked research network that links our patients through privacy preserving record linkage over to some claims data that they have. It's not a very large network, but it's there. And we also have a network called Diamond that's a little bigger than Linked, but does some different things. You can get these larger data sets out of Trinetics through their self-service tool, and I will facilitate the contracting piece. If you are working on, say, a resident project, a fellows, graduation project, a student project, and there is no funding, Trinetics will give you their big data for free. If, however, you are funded or you're writing a grant, you need data as a pilot to the grant to prove that the grant is fundable. Trinetics will contract with you for future payment as a percentage of whatever type of grant you're going for, a reasonable percentage. And then you're able to get the data for free up front, work with it for your pilot. Sometimes people don't get funded. They're not going to charge you if you don't get funded. So Trinetics is a great data partner, and there's opportunity for you to get access to data that's beyond our facilities. The Greater Plains Collaborative is another opportunity to get bigger data. We are a member of the GPC network, which is funded by PCORI. So we are a multi-funded group. So we are not only funded by the CTSA grant through NCATS, we also have funding through PCORI within their PCORNet clinical research network. And so we are partnered with 13 other academic healthcare organizations. Our hub site is Missouri, and they have spun up a secure Snowflake environment that houses each site's common data model and aggregated that data together such that you could come and query against all the sites in a free federated I2B2 instance. This is very new. This is very exciting. I've tried it. It's very cool. So if you are looking to get data beyond Freightert, this is another opportunity. There is a cost to accessing data. Having said that, though, they are willing to subsidize for student projects. So please keep this in mind. If you are looking for, if your cohort is a small N and you just need more data, this is an opportunity to do some demonstration projects, pilot projects, student projects. Of course, we're going to facilitate your access to this group. So feel free to reach out if you have questions about this. But you're welcome to go to the GPC network website. It's very well organized. It may be able to answer your questions, and we'd love to engage with you all with this group. So how do you get access? We do ask that you join the CTSI, and if you forget to do it, I'll join for you, because we keep a database. Obviously, we're grant funded. We have to show the depth and breadth of our service to our user community, and so we maintain a database. How many PIs, how many projects are we supporting, all that good stuff. So we do ask that you join the CTSI and become a part of our group. And everyone who uses the data warehouse, even if it's de-identified data, everyone has to have human subjects research training through Citi. That is required by our IRB banking protocol. It's important for auditability so that we are only letting folks into this data enclave who have demonstrated Citi training in human subjects research. This is a very important and hard stop requirement to get access to our data. We have a CRDW intake form through this. The link at the bottom of the screen is our main page, our front door page. The link to our intake form is right there, as well as a lot of other information that can help you learn about our data. We have IRB template language. We have all kinds of stuff on this page that may be able to answer your questions, but of course you are always welcome to email me and my team to get answers. I see a new question in the chat. Oh, not a question from Dr. Michaels. Yes, APPs are absolutely welcome to work on research. Absolutely true. That's a really good point. So there's one exception to the faculty rule for access, and it's the pharmacists. So they are independent, even if they're not technically faculty, they are considered independent PIs when they do their research projects and QI projects. APPs, though, yes, would need a faculty sponsor. So would a fellow, a resident, or a medical student. Excellent comment. So here's the new process I sort of mentioned earlier. We are going to become the front door. We actually started piloting this back in February. We changed our intake form to ask many of the questions that the MyDA request had on their intake form so that we're more aligned. So we're getting the information up front that if we do need to ask the Freighter Analytics team to augment a data set, that we have all the requirements and we can hand that off pretty seamlessly. They can build a cohort, send it back to us. Basically, we're doing this because Freighter Enterprise Analytics does not have a tight relationship with the IRB. They don't have an honest broker process. We have an honest broker process. We have the self-service process, but we also have a custom process. So our team can facilitate getting data for you from Freighter through our honest broker process. It's a couple of extra steps. The burden is on us, but it's a much more compliant and auditable process. So we're here to facilitate that. So rules of the road, and this has been stated on I think it's projects with category 4 and 8, like the registered projects. Teams are expected to use the self-service data warehouse whenever they can. It's the least resource heavy. It's the most expedient way to get data. So that expectation has not changed, and it will be reinforced through the communications coming through InfoScope and other forums. Please don't go to the MyDA front door. We will initiate that request on your behalf. Also, please don't go to your coders to get patients, but do enlist their help when you need lists of codes. They are really, really good at diagnosis and procedure coding. So and this does happen. So if you're looking to find a cohort, but maybe you're not sure of the codes and you've tried to look in Trinetics and you still can't, or you're not sure about the codes, we do have an army of coders that support every single department and division, but they should not be tapped for running queries and giving lists of patients. Yeah, and then so our intake form is available to everyone through our front door. And that's it. Questions at this point, and hopefully I have time for a demo. Just close this. Oop. There we go. Nothing in the chat. Any questions?
This is Mary Horowitz. This is great, and so glad that you're letting everyone know the fantastic resources that are available through the CTSI. For cancer-related projects, can you talk a little bit about when should investigators go to GEO, meet with an eye, to get data through the ICDR versus directly through the portals that you were talking about here?
I think the best first step is to fill out the intake form so that we know what you're looking for, and if it can be accomplished through our tool set, golden. If it can't, then we hand it off. That's really the vision of the centralized process, is to have our team, the research informatics team, read through the requirements, make that determination, and partner with the other teams to augment what the CRDW cannot do, because it cannot do everything. We're not trying to hide that by any stretch. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Just a comment on that. You know, for things that are already there, there's no reason to go through the ICDR. What the ICDR, and this is related to the next question in the chat. The ICDR can help map variables that are not already being exported from Epic into the clinical data, into the data warehouse. And you know, sometimes you want a variable that's actually a combination of a bunch of different variables. And you know, like, what does first remission mean in terms of discrete elements that come out of Epic? And that's where the ICDR consultation and collaboration is most useful. And they are working on natural language processing, but that is not really available for all those things that are PDFs in Epic. A very unfortunate choice in the original design of and subsequent designs of the system. But it will be someday. But what can happen, like what's happened in one of the myeloma databases, they can pull that PDF into your REDCap database so that with the questions that need to be extracted underneath to make the data, the manual data extraction and entry much easier for whoever is doing it. So that there are some ways to expedite the accessing of data that right now is not in discrete data elements.
Absolutely. You bring up an excellent point about the ICDR. This integrated data resource is a huge step forward for cancer research. I work very closely with the programmer, the primary programmer. I also work closely with Vaughn. And when someone comes to our front door and they indicate, so our new form has an indication, are you looking for to use the ICDR resource? You can check the box. Vaughn gets alerted. What we should be doing is evaluating the request. And you're absolutely right. There are so many analytic variables that are not currently available in the self-service tool set. So we're working with the ICDR programmer to make sure that we are understanding how those analytic variables are calculated, and can we facilitate better and easier and more self-service access to them to make this process more efficient. So we're learning.
Yeah, every ICDR project that works on those variables makes the data warehouse better, because then you have the mapping already done for the next person. And I just also wanted to say something about the fact that we do have a predict protocol that does allow us to have identified information for retrospective patients. So if your project really requires that you have to have identifiers, you can access them under that protocol. I forget, up to a certain date. And I don't know what that date is, but Sameem knows, and he can tell you. And if you can do projects under Predict with a pretty simple project forms that would not require you to submit to the IRB. And
It's just
prospectively, we are trying to get consent from patients we're trying to implement a process to get consent from patients as they walk through the door. So it wouldn't just be retrospective analyses, but could be prospective analyses as well.
Absolutely. Was there a comment?
I was just going to add that the date is when you submit the project. So it's retrospective from the point of when somebody submits a request to do a retrospective project in Predict. And then with the latest amendment to Predict, which is, hopefully what'll allow for sort of e-consenting or broad consenting of patients onto Predict, we also linked Predict to this bank as well. So essentially that should help, potentially if projects require, CDRW resources to kind of, then just kind of allow for all of the above, whatever the project requires.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up because I am familiar with Predict and I wanted to say that very thing. It's already linked. The language is there. So when folks come to the front door and fill out that team, absolutely list your protocol that you intend to work under. Because what we can do, we have view access to all the protocols. We can help identify a protocol that needs an amendment to link to the bank, to add some language. We evaluate whether the people on your team are all listed so that they could use Honest Broker. So we go through those checkpoints with you and we actually provide them in our welcome message, just in written form so that they're always there for you and they are available. All these checkpoints are available on our landing page as well. Am I still sharing, Dan? Can you see my screen?
Yes, you can still see it.
Yeah, awesome. So this is our main page. Here's the intake form. It's right at the top. There's some completion instructions, workflow, little blah, blah, blah. A lot of the things I've already said. Here are those Honest Broker checkpoints. So they're documented here. So if you're writing a new protocol, make sure you check this out and follow these instructions such that when you do end up at the door and make a submission through the Honest Broker for identified data, that the IRB reviewer can easily tick through these sections, these checkpoints, and say yes or no. Their response rate is excellent. They don't sit on the requests. And so this is news you can use. Here, linked here is our language. So you can borrow these templates. So if you need identified data, if you need for whatever use case, participant recruitment, there are certain things and it tells you which section of the smart form to focus on. So we have all this language here available to reuse, and this is all approved by the IRB. Let's see, what are the other questions here? Jean, did we answer your question about routine variables not readily available?
Briefly, it is, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Michaels, are there online webinars or instructional videos that people can look at their leisure? For Trinetics, yes. They have excellent online videos to teach you how to use their tools. They're very short, they're very concise, and I highly recommend if you want to try using Trinetics that you tick through some of their instructional videos. They do a great job explaining their tool. But of course, we'll do one-on-one training with you on that tool. I2B2, we have a user guide. So if you pop over here, this is the page everyone gets access to, this resource links page. Once you have access, there's a link to my
demo
team
mail.
if you have
This is a small one.
questions. And we right now have a user guide, which is going to change because we just got a new version of I2B2 and we're testing it now. So everything about I2B2 that's in this user guide is going to blow up in a couple months. What our hope is not only to update the user guide, but to provide some videos or at least some sound bites, for those that are you know, good at listening and learning through auditory, that you can listen to videos as you're working through the tool set. So, or listen to sound bites. So that is something we're working on because we realize that there's only a few of us and there's a lot more of you. So we need to find more efficient ways to educate our user community. Dr. Kamaraju, I have a question. Extracting larger data set. If you want to expand to the GPC, is there a different process involved? Yeah, there is indeed. So the GPC leverages our common data model, which is different than our CRDW. We do leverage some of the CoreNet common data model within the data warehouse, and that's a little bit transparent to you all. But it is a different process, and I do encourage you to reach out. You can reach out to me directly via email, or you can reach out via our group email, cbmi-ri@mcw.edu. We are happy to answer those questions. We can connect you with the GPC. Thanks, Dr. Michaels. Appreciate the invitation. She's got to drop off. At this point, do we have additional questions, written or verbal? Excellent questions. So we could walk into a quick demo if you want to do that. Or we can give you 15 minutes back. Dr. Charlson, what do you think?
I'd watch a demo and people can stay if they want or go if they want. But
Okay. Okay, yeah, I can easily walk through this. Let's see. We can pop into, can do either I2B2 or Trinetics. Any preference, Dr. Charlson? You can be my guinea pig.
oh boy. If I was interested in more of a local project, is there one that's better than the other?
Yeah,
I2B2.
great question. Demo, yes, we got another vote for demo. So here's the big difference between Trinetics and I2B2, and we do walk through this during a training session, the one-on-one training. I2B2, and I'll pop it up here, has all the data domains for query. It's easier, I think, to look at it. So things like the biospecimens, the link to the MCW tissue bank, this is not in Trinetics, nor our providers or their specialties. So we have a domain here in I2B2. If you are looking for patients who've been seen by cardiac surgery, you could use that here, but you cannot use that in Trinetics. Trinetics does have visit types now, but they don't have our facility structure. So sometimes it's scary to open these. So the node to pay attention to when you are looking for local facility structure is this health network node. And this lists all of our care locations within the health network. It's from the query perspective, it's kind of a be careful what you wish for. And it's much easier to look for care locations in the search engine. So if we were looking for cancer departments, we'd go to the health network here and we'd look for, I don't think it's named cancer. How did we name the new? So if I go to Fredert Hospital, here you get a list. But those are the things, these are the things you can only do in I2B2. So if you need to look, very commonly, I have people looking for FH emergency department. So did they come in through the Freighted emergency department? You can drag that over here. So it's a drag and drop tool. You can find patients, and I know this is not relevant to cancer. I'm just like pulling stuff over that I've done recently that's top of mind. But are there criteria that would be meaningful for you? We can certainly look at some of those. Like, are we looking for, we're looking for leukemia, and you type in a term inside of ICD-10 domain, you can find as broad or specific a concept as you need. And of course, these are ICD-10 codes. We also have ICD-9 codes. So if your project is looking for patients farther back in time than the ICD-10 cutover, which was October 1st of 2015, then you also need to include ICD-9 codes in your definition. So you have to have both if you're looking back for that far in time, if you're going back to 2012 or whatnot. Trinetics, the cool thing about Trinetics is that they do that calculation. So they've done that mapping. I2B2 has not, Trinetics has. So if you search for an ICD-10 code automatically in Trinetics, and here I have Trinetics, I can also show you how that looks. You get the ICD-9 codes. See, I just need to authenticate. So Trinetics is now on our network and it authenticates directly through Duo. So if you're off campus, you will need to be logged into a VPN or Citrix to use any of our tools now. So if I do a new query and I'm looking for leukemia, oops, can't spell. You can go over here and look through the list of ICD-10s. Pre-checked, it says show the ICD-9 term. So as you drill in, you can also see that you're getting both terms. So if I want C95.00 and the equivalent, I can get that. If I want all of the C95.0s, I can get those. If I want all of the C95s, regardless of their suffix, you can do that as well. And you can add the entire folder here with one click to the query. And then you could also set an age range. So I'm looking for patients between 18 and 40 years of age. And they cannot have metastatic disease, which we have discovered is one of these. And then there's another metastatic somewhere in this group. Secondary neoplasm. Oh, here, secondary. And they cannot have that. And then I could just simply count patients. I've got 480. You can use the grouper function and add your inclusion term here, put it in the group, and then you can add a time constraint. This is very new. They have just updated this user interface to have less buttons, and now they have this little drop down. So if you want to add a time constraint, you could say in the last 5 years by doing this, dragging the timeline, or you could click specific dates and say, I'm looking from 1/1 of 2012 to the current date, and you could save that in the group. But you're going to keep your exclusion here at the top because that's a never. So stuff that's ungrouped in Trinetics, over in the must-have, it's ever. Over in the cannot have, it's never. Now I could count the patients. I'm down to 300 because I put a time constraint. I only want patients from 2012 forward. Likewise, you could do something cool if you want patients who had their first, what was it? What did I use? C95? I can just type in the code. That's a lot faster now that I know the code. I can create another group and I can actually drag, oh, I'm going to drag leukemia. I can't think, oh, I can drag it right there. And I can say, I'm going to add another time constraint that they cannot have it prior to. So I can add 12/31/2011 and save that as another exclusion. So they have to have the diagnosis from this date forward. They cannot have the diagnosis from this date prior. So these are your new patients as of 1/1 of 2012 forward. And you can do this. We recently did some counts for Decode, and finding new patients, it's a little extra logic, but it can be done using these tools. The important thing to include is the prior time period exclusion to make sure that you're not counting new patients or existing patients. And of course, the limitation is maybe they had it prior, but they were at another institution and we don't know. That's one of the limitations, normal limitation. Does this make a lot of sense to people? Any questions about forming the logic, building the cohort?
Are both linked to the tumor registry?
Yes, the tumor registry data is in here. So for cancer, that's a great question. The filters for cancer concepts include oncology details. Now, this one doesn't appear to have any staging, but it does have some histology. So you could drill into whatever properties appear here in the oncology details. Not all diagnoses, cancer diagnoses have the same oncology details, but whatever details are available, you can get them here. That you can see that, be careful though, because some of these get very granular and they can make your cohort get very small very fast. But you can certainly do that. Use the oncology details to refine your definition of a cancer cohort. And so to get your patients out of this tool, to get a list, you can export the list. Trinetics just sent me a password to open up this little zip file. And voila, I have a list of patients, which I can copy and go back over here. Oops. And I can go to the Freighted Honest Broker, and I have this really small, sorry. And I can say, I'm going to get de-identified data, obviously. Trinetics patient numbers. I got this list. I'm going to go back up real quick and get rid of the header because we don't need the header. And I'll call this my leukemia demo. And then you can choose tables. You can say, yeah, I want to look at their demographics. I can look at the biospecimens they have. I can also look at their NACER data. I can look at their surgical history. I can look at all different kinds of stuff. And then here's where you set that output to say, all right, how much data do I want? And we could match it to the beginning of the cohort definition, if that's the way that the project is defined. Sometimes a cohort definition is maybe a year or two of patients with a diagnosis, and then you either look back or you look forward. So your start and end date in Honest Broker can be different than the dates you use in the cohort definition. So you submit this de-identified request. The tool automatically starts running it. The extract is in process. We have a couple of shortcut buttons. Let's say if you forgot to order the genomics table. Well, duh, of course we want genomics. You can uncheck and resubmit and just now get a genomics table, and that is running automatically. And now they're both available. It works very fast. And so you will get 2 zip files. Here's the biospecimens. There's a little summary file in here. I don't know if I can make this bigger. Oh, I can. Cool. Which tells you for your cohort of 264. So the query tools will obfuscate the true count until you come over here. So you've got 264 patients, and only 51 of them, however, have biospecimens. All of them have demographics. 88 of them have NACER registry facts, and 149 of the 264 have surgical case data. So this little summary file is really informative and it tells you what's going on with your cohort. I thought I clicked. Oh, I'll bet you we didn't get any genomic data. There weren't enough. So yeah, there's 30. Thought I clicked it and downloaded it, but it didn't pop up right away. Here we go. Yep, it's suppressed because not enough patients have genomic data on file. So there are some limitations using de-identified data. You cannot get data for cohorts less than 11. And that's what happened here. There just weren't enough patients, individual patients that had that data. And I know we're down to 1 minute, and I have actually just showed you the entire workflow very quickly. But I encourage everyone to apply and work with us, because we are happy to orient you to the tool set and get you moving forward and keep you moving forward. Any last questions or comments? I think I've got all the.
Thanks, Kristen.
All right. Thanks everyone for your attention. I appreciate the invitation. Take care.
Yeah.